right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. My name's Anna Ten-Bensel. I am the maker of this here YouTube series, Develop Her. I am a certified cryptocurrency auditor and a certified blockchain developer, but I'm here to teach y'all about the wonders and great life you can have doing tech stuff. It's also just fun stuff to learn. Sorry for being in a silly, goofy mood. I'm actually feeling good for a change after being sick for at least 8 days. It was awful. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about CSS. I just have a lot to share about this. CSS is basically like the theme of styling. So if you're someone who likes stuff that like is user facing, or if you're someone who likes to, it's so easy to learn. It's wonderful. I actually learned about it in a typography class in college, along with Helvetica, and I don't know if that professor even still remembers me, but he was awesome, and he made me actually like all of this stuff. He actually kind of was one of the people who inevitably helped me change my life entirely career-wise, of which I don't think he still knows the likes of, but regardless, let me give you a quick background on CSS because it's really kind of neat. So CSS was first proposed by Håkon Lie on October 10th, 1944. And in 1944, it was used as like a web styling language, which was formerly kind of like just HTML4, and it like actually solved a lot of problems. So the other styling languages at the time were like style sheets for HTML and JavaScript, but CSS won. So CSS stands for, I'm going to write this down, Cascading Style Sheets. So using CSS, you can maintain like the color of the text or the style of the fonts or the spacing between the paragraphs, the rows and the size and layout, what background images are used, and so many other things. But CSS is so easy to learn and understand, but it also provides an incredible control over an HTML document. And if you watched the last video, you know that HTML is pretty cut and dry, but it doesn't give you as much in terms of design. That's not what I wanted today. So, basic syntax of CSS. Syntax, if you have not watched my JavaScript video, is just like the language. So CSS is like a rule-based language where the rules specify groups of styles that should be applied to particular elements or groups of elements on your web page. So for an example, in the last video we talked about H1. H1 would be like the header. We use a little curly bracket in here, and let's say we want the header to be blue. We just say color, and then we say blue. Would you look at that? Can you tell this brings me joy? And then you have font size. And I'm going to say it's going to be 6 em. I said it. There we go. And then that's it. That's it. The set of curly brackets, inside of those will be one or more declarations, which takes the form of property and value pairs. Each pair specifies a property of an element we're selecting and that value we'd like to give the property a particular snippet of. Just like, how great. So you can kind of see the advantages. CSS really saves time when you write it. Like there's nothing super complex about it. Makes pages load faster. It's easy to maintain. It has way better styles to HTML. My email. It has multiple device compatibility, and it has global web standards. Some of the disadvantages of this is that CSS1 up to CSS3 kind of result in like creating confusion among web browsers. And then there's also limitations of security, which as someone who's a cryptocurrency auditor, I deal with systems and security all the time. And there might also be cross-browser issues. So those are like some of the downsides, but it could be way worse. But yeah, so you can basically do font styling, color, weight, size, alignment, case, line height, and font styles. So like if I were to like, just being in a little silly, goofy mood, you just write font styles. Style. And I would just write normal. That's it. Or I could write font style italic. And that's for italic. And then if we want the font to be red, I would just write color. Oops. Red. And obviously we would put this in other things, but I'm not going to bore you guys with that because this is going to be a pretty quick thing here. So I just want to touch base on this because we're going to actually need this for our next video. We're going to talk about position properties. So like websites can be laid out and defined with CSS position properties. You can like write the rules to specifically indicate the position of the certain elements within the HTML document. So common properties would include like, static, which basically elements in order based on how they appear in the document. You have fixed, which means that the elements are located in a position that's relative to the browsing window. So like if I wanted something here, I would put it 50% in from the left, 50% in from the right, and that would put us in the middle. That'd be fixed. Then we have absolute, which elements are positioned relative to its first position. And then we have sticky. And these elements are positioned relative to a website's user's scrolling location. So if you use the property to create website layouts, there'll be instances where elements on the page overlap with other items. So there could be potential issues with this approach, but there are other ways to define the position on the elements of the page, which are called float properties. And the main usage of a float property is to send an element in HTML to like the left or the right of another element without changing the flow of the document. So this is one of the best approaches for creating layouts for a website. It's also great for creating your first project, which is going to come in super handy. So like you would write a float, like float, right? Just like that. That's it. And that, it's most commonly used for like images, so an image can be positioned within a block of text. That way it doesn't create like separation. But you've seen floats used before on like a browsing situation when you change your screen and the picture stays, but like the text goes around it. That's a float. So you can see that like the CSS properties says that the image will float right. So in the body of the text, when the image is like, is entered, the float is automatically applied. Let's see. We also can do like clear properties. So a clear property of CSS is like used to clear a float. So just kind of like what you learned, when an element gets floated, all of the subsequent elements are adjusted to align to the property on the float. But if you want those elements to like begin below the floated element as opposed to alongside of it, then you can apply a clear property to start the element on a new line. So that would be that. In the box model, we have to talk about that really quick also. So every HTML element can be considered a box. And when using CSS, the box model often refers to the design and layout of the page. So the best way to describe this model is that there's a box wrapping around every element of HTML. And there are three components. There's the margin, the border, and the padding. And an example of how you'd write a CSS rule for the box model would be P, curly bracket, padding. I would say 10 pixels for this example. Border, we would do, let's say, 20 pixels, but let's make it solid blue. Look how easy that is, you guys. Ugh. And let's say for this, the margin is going to be 20 pixels. There you go. That's these properties would translate into 10 pixels of padding on each side of the text. And then the text would have empty space around the paragraph where there'd be a 20 pixel border of solid blue surrounding the padding. And lastly, there would be 20 pixels of margin between the border and any other surrounding element. So that's pretty fun. And we can also talk about like responsive web design. That's going to be a little bit more of a complex thing to show you guys later. But essentially today, like we have hundreds, if not thousands of different screens available on the market. We have tablets, we have phones, we have Apple Watches, we have computers, we have, just about everything, and it comes in every single different size. So having a full-size website with just one design for a smaller device is no longer an option. So you need to use CSS to create a responsive website. So in order for this to happen, there have to be certain principles that you need to follow to ensure that your CSS is responsive on any screen. So you need to make sure your images automatically resize to render. So it can be aesthetic on the screen, because you don't want something like huge and it stays huge if I'm shrinking this down. And that's kind of what will make the difference between a great website and a good or an okay website. And the same would go for like if you're making any sort of like interactive thing, or like we're going to be doing for your first project that kind of encompasses CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. We're going to be doing a clock, and it sounds simple, but if you want to put that like as a countdown maybe on your website for a product launch, you don't want the clock to be this big and be on a cell phone and just see like this part of it, So it does come in handy. It'll save, data usage for the user and create faster load times and just like an overall better experience. So that's what I have for you. CSS is really, truly, it's crucial, and it's great, and it's easy. There's no reason not to have this kind of information. I mean, this is like the brunt of what we're going to be using for the beginner course, and then we can go into harder stuff, but there's also a lot of really good CSS, free resources out there. And if you are starting like a UX career, or you want to go into like more of the user-facing side, I absolutely recommend learning CSS before you do any of this stuff. You can do something like, what would be a good one? I mean, besides my videos, which are obviously free, I think Code Academy has something, and their class kind of goes over the same stuff: typography, CSS grids, CSS selectors, the box model. I could be wrong. They might have it paid, but if not, they have a pretty solid program from what I hear. I actually haven't taken it, but that would be another one. So I will let you guys go. I will see you in the next video. We are going to be doing your first JavaScript, HTML, and CSS combined project. So pull up a second window to codepen.io/pen, and you should see Untitled, Captain Anonymous, HTML, CSS, JS, and then this space. This is a free website. And so the next video, I will see you guys over there, and we will make our first project together. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for bearing with me as I'm getting revitalized from being sick. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, concerns, corrections, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I also really do love questions, because I love to troubleshoot with people. So questions are so loved. Thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your day. And I will see you in the next video.